Kyra and Jimmy, welcome to THN's Road to Fright Fest. This is our annual series where we dig a little deeper into some of the films that are screening. Um, you guys are obviously here representing Slay, which is a film that THN is actually going to be presenting at the festival. So we couldn't be more thrilled to, be speaking with you now to, get a few early tidbits. I guess the obvious, first question is how do you both feel about, the Fright Fest selection and the fact that, Slay is opening the Discovery Screen Two's programming for the whole weekend?
Very excited. Yes. I'm so happy to be back at Fright Fest. This is my second time with a feature, but it's great to be back with a narrative. And because my last film was a documentary, I was playing like on a Sunday, which was fine. But when I saw that we were opening night, I was super excited. I think it's much more fun to go be seeing a horror movie while it's nighttime and spooky.
Yeah, yeah. We work so hard on this thing, and for Fright Fest to be able to kind of see what we've been working so hard on and hold it in this place. So grateful. Feel kind of seen by Fright Fest, which is a nice sensation. It was the little movie that could, and so glad it finally got to the top of the mountain.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
definitely. And for those that haven't been doing their homework, how have you been pitching Slay to people? When they ask, what's this film that you're working on? How have you been talking about it to people?
That's a great question. I think I'm still working on that, quite honestly. Um, it's one of those things where it's like it's Gen Z, but it's not what your immediate thought is of like social media is involved, but it's not the whole story. Obviously it's very inclusive, with our lead actress and things. So I don't know. I'll let Jimmy answer that one. How would you describe it?
Um, well, I was thinking it's like Slay's about a very specific time in a young person's life. It's when teenage friendship becomes both your safest place and kind of your greatest vulnerability. And these kids that we've created, they know exactly how to love one another, and they know exactly where to put the knife.
Or,
And in our movie, eventually somebody kind of takes that literally.
I
Um,
like that. Yeah.
Yeah. And how did the idea, come together and what was the writing process like? I know, Jimmy, looking at IMDb, this is kind of like your first writing credit. What was it about this story that made you want to, have a hand in and bringing it to life?
um, it well, it's I think it's my fifth screenplay. I've sold before, but this is the first one I've had the kind of privileged or prolonged exposure of carrying all the way through like production and you know, learning from myself and my acting taught me every character. This is how I approach acting, but every character believes the film is secretly about them, and especially when we're having to do with kids and now and Gen Z and social media and all these kind of platforms for you to have that feeling validated that I am the main character. And so, writing this particular screenplay, it really meant honoring that vibe, you know. Um, every time someone shows up, like, even if they have 20 or 60 minutes to survive within the movie, it should feel like they've had a complete life. Um, and and I think we did it. And the way Kira, corralled and directed and kept everything online was just, or in line, was just such an essential element. And so it's really, in her hands that we got to make this land as it did.
And Kira, for you, what is it, like having somebody, with like Jimmy with, all of his years of acting, involved in the writing process? Because I mean, that what he was just saying there about, as an actor, you kind of always act as though your character is the main character because, that is, for that person, that is the main character in the story. How does that then, help, with a production like this? Because, like I say, it's an interesting perspective that I hadn't sort of thought of before just then.
Yeah, incredibly helpful and smart. Like we worked backwards and we found the cabin location first and like wrote for that. And when Jimmy was writing, it was like amazing to see an actor's perspective because when I had this problem in film school as well, but when I tend to write, I'll write the subtext as the text a lot. And it was really awesome watching Jimmy write because the subtext actually is subtext, but he will also give a character like something to do not from point like A to B. There will be a midpoint from A to B that keeps it very active. So it was like a great learning experience to see like just how much I think actors in general like don't get enough credit of how great of writers they could be because they spend so much of their career and time like dissecting dialogue and breaking down scenes, even if they don't end up getting that part. Like that's such a big part of the job. And like you can definitely tell, like when we were writing this and Jimmy was just like coming up with so many things to make each character more dynamic than like he said, like if they're there for 20 minutes or 60 minutes, you're connected to them and hopefully you don't want them to die. Like if they do, then you're sad about it, which is a key part of making horror movies compelling, in my opinion.
Mm.
Oh, definitely. And obviously, Kira, with your documentary, we kind of learned a lot about, your history with horror. But Jimmy, what is it, about what's your own history with the genre?
Um, Absolute fascination from the time I was able to watch movies. They called to me. Most people won't understand this. Before there was access to everything when you wanted, there was just some TV channels, and being well too young, and I don't even know if VHS it showed up when I was very little, so that was still inaccessible, especially to a child under 16. So it was about like watching on the USA Network, which was a fledgling network. This guy called Captain USA, and he would show you the movies that you couldn't have access to, and they were edited out, but I was still fascinated. And my mother won a little black and white TV about this big at some kind of raffle, and so at like age 8, that was mine. And I'd spent every other night either reading a Stephen King book under the covers with a flashlight or with that little TV under the covers watching all the late night horror films like Alligator or anything that was showing. I was obsessed with it. And so when I finally found my series, which is Friday the 13th, the one that
Mm.
speaks the most to me, because the characters actually do kind of feel real. They might be a bit tropey, but that turning it up to 11 and the character tropiness and Jason's uh, style of ending lives, it's always just a little out of reality. Whether it's like sticking a horn through someone's eye and then honking it, or there's more fucking painful ones like he sticks someone in a sleeping bag and smashes them against the
Oh
tree. Um,
yeah.
and there's just so much room for fun and fantasy. So I was raised before like torture porn horror. I used to have a speech impediment.
Say
And
that
so
10 times fast.
torture porn horror. I'll do it twice and then call it quits. So I approach horror with fascination and fun, and I think that's what we built. Yeah, it's scary, but it's also enjoyable, and you're never going like, ew.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a really successful horror movie. I'm sure I love body horror, but that's not what we were trying to do. And we
No.
were basing it on Zoe Luna's some of her actual experiences. So it's fun to be able to take her real life experience and be like, yeah, but what if all the bad stuff was kind of in a fantasy world? And so we had this great little template to
Yeah.
work from.
Yeah. I mean, there's a there's a line in the film where Chloe says that she was raised on Clueless and horror movies, and I think that's definitely something that a lot of them, particularly like my generation, can really relate to because there was this kind of big resurgence around the same time as Clueless of a lot of horror films. Some of the popular horror franchises. I mean, Chucky came back around that same time.
Yeah,
So
Scream.
it does kind of straddle that line quite nicely between not necessarily teen angst as much, but there's a little bit of that kind of teen movie mixed then with the teen slasher, which I think is something that has been lacking. I mean, we've had films like Talk to Me, which have been aimed at a teen audience, but again, it's been very horrific aimed at a teen audience, whereas this is, it's getting back to those movies that I grew up on where, you can have fun with horror because, that's the only way that we're going to get people to come back is if they first learn that you can have fun here before you go down, martyrs and all of the really gnarly stuff.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's interesting because that's more like, there's it's very heavy like topics like addiction and things like that. And also with heavier topics, you almost kind of put the characters at an older age in a sense. Like they could be high school, but then in your mind, since it's more adult topics, maybe it feels more like college or right out of college, where I didn't think about that. Yeah, it's nice to have them rooted in high school in
Yeah,
this one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the elements that I really love is, it's the opening sequence. It's this montage that chronicles Chloe's social media journey, from, being on her, channel with her mother to then, going out on her own. I mean, this is minutes on screen, but each of those inserts would have taken, a lot of time, effort, and planning, how much work did go into the execution of those and what was the experience like getting to work on them because obviously there's so many people coming in and out at different points.
Yeah.
Ooh, boy.
It was a tall glass of water. You
Yeah,
should
that
have
was a
seen,
gauntlet.
yeah. Well, Jimmy and I were trying to figure out like exactly who needs to be established earlier on and things like that of who is coming and going. And there was like this wall in my apartment of like index cards of trying to figure out like what could convey what we needed to. And it was felt like a really big puzzle. But yep, it's only like 5 minutes and it was like several time like those were the true indie moments of everybody like bandwagoning together and us like shooting some pieces at my aunt's house, shooting it when we could and the actor was in town like um and not only was it like trying to piece it together before shooting it and then shooting it and then editing it but without the graphics and it's hard to imagine all the transitions and things and then getting the animator on board. It's like it went through so many revisions and then we also overshot it and we cut a bunch of stuff as well, I think. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Like I say, it's a really great opening because it cuts out the need for, the exposition, the clunky, exposition thing of like, hey, oh my God, I haven't seen you, we've been friends for so long. You've kind of you've got all of that history done there. And I think it's something that, works so well in the film, but people won't necessarily kind of sit down and think how much work went into creating this.
I'm really
That's
glad you said that because I think that was a worry of ours of like it not feeling like exposition and feeling more of like a ride, I think is what how Jimmy put it when we were making it like a ride into the movie.
yeah. Yeah,
And
truly.
it's also speaking directly to, that Gen Z audience who are used to consuming things on social media. So you're right there, you've grabbed their attention in a language that they understand to then take them into, the wider film.
1,000%. Because Kira and I are both, like film lovers, and we want a film to be beautiful, and we're folks who are, voiceover is a cheat. This is a cheat. We just want to lay the movie out. And as we built that movie, which still exists, we were like, but what about a ramp into that? And how lucky that, Gen Z are our subjects in the movie. And so we get to actually drop in the way they might even feel even more comfortable dropping in, um, and um, and just really give them this feeling that, oh, I know this. It's like that shock of recognition right at the top of, I know this. And my goodness, to have no budget, to have a negative budget, to be like, oh, how are we going to finish this without any money and a lot of favors? It was really quite the task, and it really speaks to Kira and, modesty aside, myself, as to like the commitment we had to not stop until it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we have to talk about, the fantastic cast. This is a mix of genre mainstays, that's like sort of Shawnee Smith, who's kind of doing a Gail Weathers sort of character almost. And then you've also got this, this new talent. How did you kind of go about collecting everybody up? And, I mean, as horror fans, when somebody like Shawnee Smith says, yeah, no, I'll be part of your film, that's gotta be like quite exciting.
Yeah, it's very, very exciting. It was almost like a mix of like people I knew, people Jimmy knew, and then our casting director like guiding us towards great finds like Beck Nolan, who plays Blake. And now he's on Widow's Bay and things, but this was before that. So we always from the get-go wanted to have, it's like the indie battle of like you need names to help the film, but you also want to support actors who are just getting their start or have had a start, but maybe COVID slowed that down, or they giving them a voice. So it came with Zoe, and then from there, I think it was Jimmy who knew Aya, and then I wrote a letter to Shawnee asking if she'd like to be involved as soon as we had this part available. And then the casting process for everybody else, like it's interesting to see who would audition for another character, and then we'd be like, no, but that's this character. Like Sean Giambrone originally auditioned for a different character, and by the end of that audition, we were like, he has to play Jordy. Like there's nobody else. So there were moments like that were amazing, and then others where it was like, hopefully this fits, and I think it all did.
The casting was the most fun and effortless part of actual production.
That's a good
You
point.
know, our script really garnered a lot of attention that we weren't really expecting, and so, yeah, I've known Aya for years, and I could call that in, and Kira could call in Shawnee, but then the audition process, like Sean, who is a very, very working actor with a great resume, when he showed up to audition, we are like, wow, it's attracting
Yeah.
all these lovely people, and Melina, and
Yeah.
people who work, and then little undiscovered gems like Beck Nolan, who's just getting out of theater school, and so he had his fire. I mean, he's such a brilliant actor, but he had the fire of like just dropping in for the audition, and that was just kind of a no-brainer. But yeah, we had just wonderful options, and then Kira and I's history in the industry was the thing that kind of sealed the deal of like, we have Shawnee and Aya. That's crazy.
Yeah. So
Yeah, and
lucky.
yeah, very, very, very lucky.
And
And
obviously, Kieran
Zoe
asked.
wasn't. Well, I was just going to say Zoe was there, and she wasn't just cast to execute an idea. She's part of the genesis and was able to help generate that DNA. And she understands Chloe's charisma and her hunger and her contradictions, and she just played them out without kind of telling the audience how to feel. Like, here's this side, here's this side. She was really living in it, which helped. Sorry, I interrupted.
Oh, no, no, it's fine. Like, I mean, it's an incredible performance from her. So, we should, shine a light on it. But Kieran, I was just going to say, obviously, last time you were at Fright Fest, you were there, obviously, with Chucky, your documentary, which kind of delved into, your relationship, not only with the franchise, but with your dad. And then here we are, directing narrative, and you're also then working with your dad. You're kind of his boss. What was that collaboration like?
Yeah, that was weird. I was like, um, It was great. It was great. It was nice to, when it's more of the indie films, he'll be able to like sort of supervise and then come out. Like we shot in Ohio when the bigger things are happening. And like it was great to be able to work with him in pre-production a lot, like closer where I could bug him more than maybe I would have bugged like a different SFX shop of like planning out some things. And it was a great like calmer on set as well of if things were haywire, it's just like my dad was there, Jimmy was there, like if those two people are on set, I'm good to go. But it was great. It was like a dream, a kind of dream come true in a way of this one death that Jimmy and I were both very excited for, and to watch that play out on set, and that being my dad and his team was really exciting. And I'm like, okay, when do we get to do the next one?
Mhm.
Definitely.
Yeah,
And
there was just so much great collaboration all around. It was the production process, though difficult from some outside circumstances. When that wasn't the case, there was just this pure integration, and we had the screenplay as a blueprint, but directing is the daily act of turning the possibilities of the screenplay into decisions. And yeah, I knew what the characters wanted, where the emotional turns lived, and Kira knew how the film should breathe and move and look. And I don't know, the healthiest version of that collaboration was that there was no ownership. It was each of us protecting the very same movie, but from a different angle, if that makes sense.
yeah, yeah. And I think it's one of the great things about independent filmmaking, particularly within the horror community. I know Kira, obviously, last time you were at Fright Fest, you made friends with several other filmmakers, and I believe you guys were all kind of in touch, helping each other out, and like Addison and Jeff, you kind of all kind of help each other out. I mean, that must be great to be able to go to a festival and not only, screen your film and that, but to then make these, friends who completely understand, your life, your journey, your art, and then can, help you, later down the line.
Yeah, I was just texting Addison and Jeff before this. So that's so funny. Yeah, that's the great part about Fright Fest too, is like even though it's abroad, like all the people that go from the US, and you just get with the people who really understand not only how hard it is to make an indie movie, but also understand the festival circuit of like, did you get into such and such? No, I didn't. Did you? I did. Tell me about that. Do you have any advice? Like, it's very not gate kept, which is amazing. And also like, then the people who get to like come back, like I met Sarah Bolger at Fright Fest last time, and now she's back with a film that she's in that's an opening night, and so and then you meet people at LA that are then going, and so it feels like familial in a way to like come back to Fright Fest too. But it's one of the film festivals that has been the most like rewarding and like helpful for filmmakers to find each other, because there's so many events that Fright Fest puts on for us to help one another. And yeah, our group chat between me, Addison, Elise, who was there, and Jeff is Fright Fest Spookies.
Nice. And I guess obviously, sort of my final question to you both, why do you hope that Fright Festers turn up for Slay? Why do you hope that they give this film a chance?
That's a good question. First and foremost, I think we're at a time in the industry where, especially for the US at least, like representation is dwindling and dwindling, for, across all minorities, quite honestly, women, people of color, the LGBTQ community. So it's amazing that such a big genre festival is somebody that's getting behind that and not like scared to be behind a film that has LGBTQ representation right now, I think is really important. And also just celebrates it. It's such a good platform for people to come see. And like the UK distribution, when I went with my doc and then had sales in the US, was so, so supportive. So to know kind of that we're already a foot in with the UK market and genre is so exciting because everybody I've worked with out there has been so lovely, but also so supportive of true, actual independent films. It's also not a film festival that's, showing so many features that already are distributed and with a studio behind it. I think festivals are tending to lose that quality that really help independent filmmakers right now. So it's just exciting that we get to be a part of it.
Truly, truly. Um, Fright Fest is such a perfect place, and as far as like what the audience will get, I think
Mm.
I really do think the social media thing, and again, like most beautiful changes, you don't choose, it's forced upon you. And we had some
Mm.
limited days, we had some cut short days, and we literally weren't able to get every single thing that was in the plan of this is what it's going to be. And so it was always going to have a social media element, but it's that intro, with any kind of horror movie, you're always, unless you get some bang off like kill that blows your mind at the top, there's always this like,
Yeah.
okay, what is this, and
What are
when
we
will I
getting
know what
into?
this is? And so social media is such a perfect little platform for it. And social media isn't like the monster in Slay. It's the amplifier.
Oh,
Chloe's
yeah.
online her online life doesn't create her insecurity or ambition. It just gives those things an audience, which is what everybody can relate to right now. And we weren't interested in saying social media is bad. We were interested in like what happens, honestly, when a teenager can no longer tell the difference between being loved and being watched
Mm.
and being successful.
Are being
And I
used.
think, yeah, and I think we all kind of like can relate to that because it's a wild thing. But I think I hope that the audience that does show, and I think they will, and we've got some killer poster work and little stuff that we've been working on, and Kira's been doing her thing like a Keebler elf, like going, okay, and here's buttons, and here's this, and here's this. These just organic, tactile ways, because like we use only practical effects. That was really important to us. But I hope they have like a fucking raucous bomb ass time. It's Slay's a movie that's made to be experienced with a crowd, so you can laugh together and you can
Yeah.
recoil together, and then
In the
maybe
theater.
immediately distrust the person that's sitting next to you. But under that, you know, it's about just recognizing all the strange violence and tenderness of friendships too, and how those things really help us know who we are. So it's designed to it's coincidentally designed. It's like universally sent to us to design it with this ramp, and then I really think it follows through, and it's just a great time.
Yeah, yeah, no, 100%. Well, thank you both for your time and best of luck at the screening. And I'll see you in a week so we can open Fright Fest.
Ah, thank you, Kat. This is so
How
fun. Thanks for your time.
exciting!